She could feel her muscles screaming. Her arms shook as she pulled herself up to the window and peeked inside. The shaking had nothing to do with the 90-degree weather, or the fact that she'd strained her tiny arms to pull her 95-pound body up 5 feet. If someone had asked her, she would have denied that they shook because she was scared. She was a shadow, and shadows didn't get scared, no matter what. She peeked into the dark window as she moved her tiny body and got a better hold on the narrow ledge. The old place had sat empty for years. Now, however, she could see boxes piled up across the dark room, and right in the middle of those boxes sat a small safe. Bingo! Billy would be so proud. He might be a little pissed that she hadn't invited the gang along for the job, but he would overlook it for the loot she was sure to bring back. She knew this old place like the back of her hand. After all, she'd lived in the building for over a year. It was the year right after her old man had ended up dead on the sidewalk outside their hotel room. She cupped her hands and checked the place out, just to make sure it was empty. She could smell the new paint and notice that the walls were no longer a dingy brown. Someone had painted them a nice glossy white, making them look new, which actually worked in her favor. Now she would be able to see in the dark better. The light from the streets angled in the tall windows and reflected off the high-gloss walls, illuminating the whole room. She wouldn't even need the pen light that was tucked in her pocket. Reaching into her other pocket, she pulled out the small knife that her old man had lifted for her 10th birthday. She expertly flipped it open and jammed it under the windowsill, searching for the small lock she knew so well. There. The window creaked, then slid open silently. Pulling her agile body over the sill, she slowly slid down to the hardwood floor, listening the whole time and keeping her eyes peeled, just like her old man had taught her. Hearing and seeing nothing out of sorts, she moved with grace across the floor. Her dirty keds didn't make a sound on the floorboards. She knew which boards would creak and easily avoided them. Halfway across the room she heard a siren in the distance, and just for a minute her heart stopped. She stood motionless, waiting, holding her breath, ready to sprint out the window and run for her life. When the siren started fading, she released her breath in a soft whoosh. Moving a little faster, she reached the safe. Perfect. It was an older model, and she thought she could easily crack this one in her sleep. Leaning over and placing her ear to the cool metal door, she got to work. It took her almost 5 minutes to crack the damn thing. She could blame it on the lack of light, but the truth was that her sweaty hands kept slipping on the cool knob. Finally, when the safe door slid silently open, a huge smile appeared on her face. She was 17 years old and the best thief in Portland, Oregon. Well, she'd been the best ever since her old man had died of a stroke. Inside the small safe was a treasure. There was over 1,000 in cash, which she quickly rolled up and placed in her pocket. There was a large stack of checks, which she left alone. A small black box sat in the back of the safe. Reaching in, she grabbed the silk case and quickly stashed it in her jacket pocket. This was the best haul since she and her old man had broken into the liquor store. She'd been 9 at the time and thought they'd hit the jackpot with $3,000. Not to mention her father had grabbed enough liquor to last him a month. She pulled out the packet of baby wipes from her pocket and wiped the outside of the safe down like she'd been taught, making sure to go over the handle 3 times. Then she closed the safe with a small click, spun the dial, stuffed the wipes in her jeans, and let herself out of the old building onto Main Street. An hour later, she made her way over to the base of the Shadows. They weren't the best-known gang in Portland, but they were her family. As she crawled through the broken fence, Johnny, tonight's lookout, sat on the ground, cross-legged, smoking a cigarette. "Billy's pissed," he said, and flicked the butt across the yard. It was the simple statement that stopped her. She thought of turning around and playing it cool for a couple of days, but instead she held her chin up and marched in the back door. This week's base was nothing more than an old bowling alley that had half burned down 3 months ago. No one drove by, and no one bothered them since the neighborhood had gone down the toilet years ago. She walked into the small room, which hadn't been burned, at the back of the building. She noticed that Bonnie, her best friend, was sprawled across Billy's lap on an old green couch. The pair had been together since they were 6 years old after running away from their foster parents. It had taken several years for the relationship to turn from brotherly and sisterly into what it was today.